Jerusalem Dateline. This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israel takes a step towards new elections, while the Middle East watches and waits to see how Iran will respond after the assassination of its chief nuclear scientist. Plus, Arise, a conference that brings together Israeli innovators in the startup nation with Christian investors from around the world. And reading the Bible in the land of the Bible. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Israel took one step closer to possible elections after Israeli lawmakers voted to dissolve the parliament. The vote followed a nationwide address by alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz, who blamed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the crisis.
The only one who can prevent these elections is the one who decided on them. Netanyahu, the burden of proof is on you. Bring the budget to the government immediately. Make sure it will pass and promise the unity you only know to talk about in front of the cameras.
Netanyahu blamed Gantz for violating their coalition deal and called on Gantz to stop the rush to elections.
Even though blue and white in this government formed a government within a government, they opposed us all the time, violated coalition agreements. I'm telling them to put everything aside. Benny, what needs to be done now is a U-turn from politics for the citizens of the State of Israel. This is what needs to be done now, and I'm asking you, do it.
Israel now faces two possible scenarios for elections. One, the Knesset has to vote 2 more times to dissolve itself. Or 2, if the government fails to come up with and pass a budget by December 23rd, Israelis will go back to the polls in March or April for the 4th time in less than 2 years. Iran is blaming Israel and vowing revenge after the assassination of its chief nuclear scientist. The killing increases tension in the Middle East and puts some in Washington on edge. The assassination took place just outside of Tehran. An Iranian journalist citing regime officials said the ambush began with a car bomb, and then a 12-member squad opened fire on the 3 cars with the nuclear scientist and his bodyguards. But one top Iranian official accused Israel of using remote electronic devices to carry out the assassination. While no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif blamed Israel, and Iran's President Rouhani pledged retaliation.
At the right time, the relevant officials will respond to this crime.
An Iranian newspaper suggested Iran attacked the Israeli port city of Haifa in order to inflict heavy casualties. On Sunday, the IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kohavi visited Israel's northern border and said, "Our message is clear. We will remain fully prepared against any manifestation of aggression against us." Prime Minister Netanyahu specifically mentioned the chief scientist after revealing how Mossad covertly stole Iranians' atomic secrets.
This is how Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, head of Project Ahmad, put it. Remember that name, Fakhrizadeh.
Amos Yadlin, former chief of Israel's military intelligence, says Iran has twin tracks toward a nuclear bomb. The public side, where they enrich uranium under watch by the UN, and a secret military program headed by Fakhrizadeh.
The damage to the covert weaponization program is huge. No doubt that he was the core source of authority, knowledge, and organization of this program.
Yadlin sees 2 main options for Iranian leaders: wait for a potential Biden administration or retaliate now.
They can use their proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, or their Shia militia in Syria or Iraq, and they can go to an extreme step, which is launching missiles from Iran.
Biden supporters of the former vice president blasted the assassination. Former Obama CIA Director John Brennan tweeted, "This was a criminal act and highly reckless. It risks lethal retaliation and a new round of regional conflict. Iranian leaders would be wise to wait for the return of responsible American leadership on the global stage and to resist the urge to respond against any perceived culprits." For now, the region is waiting and watching for any response, and if it puts the Middle East on the brink of war. Here in Israel, hundreds of Ethiopian Jews arrived at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport. It's a step towards fulfilling the government's pledge to reunite hundreds of Ethiopian families that are split between Israel and Ethiopia. Many waved flags, and some stopped to kiss the ground. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met the new immigrants that are called Olim in Hebrew.
My wife Sarah and myself were standing there with tears in our eyes when we saw the Olim, our brothers, the Ethiopian Jews, disembark from the plane with baskets, like I remember in my childhood. They disembark and touch the ground of Eretz Israel, and the mother bows down and kisses the ground, carrying a baby girl named Yerushalayim and another baby girl named Esther. Esther and Yerushalayim come to Jerusalem. This is the essence of the Jewish story, the essence of the Zionist story.
While many Ethiopian Jews are returning to Israel now, after the rebirth of the State of Israel in 1948, many Arab Middle Eastern countries and Iran drove out hundreds of thousands of Jews. Israel's UN ambassador Gilad Erdan is pledging to pass a United Nations resolution to recognize the plight of those Jewish refugees. Here's a story we did earlier on the little-known history of those Jews. For thousands of years, Jewish communities thrived throughout the Middle East. But all that changed in 1948, when Muslim nations reacted violently to Israel's birth.
Jews of Middle Eastern and North African descent, almost 900,000 of these Jews were exiled forcibly from their homes throughout the Middle East and North Africa when the State of Israel was founded.
After the 1967 Six-Day War, another wave of persecution hit and forced most of the remaining Jews to leave 11 Middle Eastern and North African countries. Linda Munichen became one of those refugees.
Nobody would want anything with the Jews, especially with the incitement going on the radio, in the mosques. So we were labeled like the fifth column. Also, more constraints were put, like you couldn't take out from your own account from the bank more than 100 dinars a month.
In 1970, Mnuchin and her brother left Baghdad for Israel, keeping their flight secret from their father, a prominent lawyer.
We didn't even kiss goodbye because I thought we'll meet one day. Anyway, I had to run away through Iran.
They escaped into the unknown.
I was disguised like an Arab when I looked, and my brother bought a very old coat. It was very cold winter. And to our big luck, everything went smoothly because at the time Jews were not allowed to be away from home more than 80 or 100 kilometers.
Examples like this happen all across the Middle East. Expulsions, seizure of property, and murder of the Jews.
In the aftermath of the Six-Day War in 1967, the mob in Libya, especially in Tripoli and Benghazi, took to the streets and started burning the homes of Jewish people and ransacking our warehouses. And my father's warehouse was burned. And then they came along and started pouring gasoline around my house. And a Muslim neighbor came down from the building and convinced the mob that the Jewish family wasn't living there anymore. And of course, he saved our lives.
American Gina Waldman started Jamina, Jews indigenous to the Middle East and North Africa.
And I always felt that there was a sense of injustice, that even though we really made a good life for ourselves in whichever country hosted us, nonetheless, we were never recognized for the wrongs that were done to us.
2/3 of the Jewish refugees resettled in Israel and the rest in other Western countries. Waldman and Mnuchin both say they were traumatized. For Israel, sharing the saga of Jewish refugees is part of gaining international recognition for their sufferings.
And we say, well, there are two sets of refugees. There are Jewish refugees and there are Arab refugees, and both sides should be compensated together.
Up next, it's called Arise, and it's bringing together Israeli innovation and Christian investment from around the world. For years, the BDS movement has urged countries, companies, and even churches to boycott and divest from any group tied to Israel. Its goal? Demonize the Jewish state and damage its economy. But one Israeli group has found a way to counter this tactic. It's called Arise, and I talked to its founder, Caleb Myers, in our Jerusalem studio. Caleb Myers, why don't you tell me first of all, what is Arise?
Arise, very simply, is an organization dedicated to connecting business people from the international community to Israel, the vast majority of them being evangelical Christians. You have these odd voices around the world that over the last few years have called to boycott the Israeli economy. We thought instead of fighting the campaign to boycott, let's work on the positive level of connecting the millions of Christian business people around the world to the economy of Israel, people who are positively predisposed towards doing business in Israel. So that's what we do. And we have several very efficient platforms, matchmaking platforms, where we connect businesses to businesses in a very tailor-made way.
This is your third year, and so how successful has it been?
It's been great. We were able to have 2 physical annual summits before COVID-19 hit. The last one was a year ago in December 2019. We had 550 business people from 35 different nations, created hundreds of face-to-face meetings. Based on our feedback forms, we created about $34 million of immediate transactions on that one day, with estimated economic impact of $350 million over the next 10 years. There's a great crowd of Christians around the world who want to do business with Israel, and we just want to make that process as simple and easy as possible.
What's new this year is not only COVID, but also the Abraham Accords have happened in the last year. How does this change the dynamic?
The theme of the summit is prospering in the new normal. The new normal being both the COVID-19 reality that we all find ourselves living in, as well as the normalization of ties in the Middle East with the Gulf states, which open up enormous opportunities. Some Christians ask, peace with these Muslim majority states something that we should celebrate or not? Is this good for Israel? As far as we're concerned, if you've been praying for the peace of Jerusalem like the Bible instructs you to, you should be extremely excited that peace is actually taking place now, and it really creates an opportunity for flourishing and economic prosperity for both peoples. You know, you have literally hundreds of billions of dollars that these states in the Gulf want to deploy in innovation, in high tech and IT. They understand that the clock is ticking as far as fossil fuels, as other sources of energy are becoming more prevalent around the world. Israel, of course, is a startup nation. We have more startup companies than any country in the world per capita. So Joel Rosenberg, who's actually speaking at our summit, he says we're going to see a gold rush, where you have the massive resources from these countries, Israeli innovation. The combination between them will be great, not just for Israel and its neighbors, but for the whole world. Because a lot of the innovation that's developed in Israel, which I know has been covered by CBN, is innovation for good, tackling the greatest crises, facing humanity. And we're going to feature some of those in our summit. For instance, technologies that are used to fight COVID-19. We're going to have a speaker from an Israeli company called Aura Air, which has an air filtration system with a radius of like 300 square meters. They had developed it to kill airborne diseases in hospitals and just launched it when COVID-19 hit. So they were able to do real tests on COVID-19 patients and prove that it cleans 99.9%, kills the COVID droplets going through the air. So these are exciting technologies. They're already exporting these to hospitals, clinics around the world, and it's not too late to sign up.
That's what I was going to ask. How can somebody sign up and get involved?
Right. So if you're a Christian business person or any business person from around the world and you want to participate in the summit, you can just go to arisesummit.com. Very simple sign up process. And you'll be able to participate with hundreds of other people from around the world, faith-based, value-driven businesses. And first of all, enjoy our main stage content, which is going to be about 5.5 hours of excellent streaming content. But then we also have a B2B tab. Be able to see all the other participants, filter through them with software that, so you'll find people based on area of interest or industry, what they have to offer, and those exciting leads, you'll be able to set up a live video chat with them, like literally have your hallway conversation like at a physical summit. We try to create software that'll replicate as much as possible, our summits that we have in Israel.
And it's going to be on December 7th, is that right?
It's on December 7th, and please go in and sign up at arisesummit.com.
Well, Caleb Myers, thanks so much. We look forward to that. Up next, an Israeli innovation that promises to provide clean air, including protection from the coronavirus. As Caleb Myers mentioned in our interview, the Arise Summit will feature a number of Israeli innovations, including a company called Aura Air. CBN News did a story on this company earlier this year. And as the world looks for a safe reopening from COVID shutdowns, Aura Air says it holds a key by providing one of the things needed most, clean air. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
3 years ago, Aviad Schneiderman and his brother decided to take their father's heating and air conditioning business into high-tech air quality. Now Schneiderman is CEO of Aura Air.
Our product is a one-stop shop. It's a full solution for indoor air quality, from detection, analyzing, and providing you purifier and disinfecting the air. Aura is a solution for any indoor environment, from your house to your office space, hotels, automotive industry, buses, trains, any indoor environment that you can think of. We are the best solution for that.
Even before COVID-19, Israel's Sheba Medical Center used Aura Air, which touts it can filter out most particles from allergens to dust to viruses and bacteria.
Sheba used this product because in hospital we have a lot of infections problems. And once you can give an information and also know how to attack those three vehicles, the particles, gases, and humidity in the air, you can reduce it significantly.
Now they're studying its effectiveness against the coronavirus.
There's amazing performance. We can filter the air in very high resolution, but also disinfect it. We already proved that on different viruses, on different types of flu viruses, and nowadays we are testing it on the COVID as well.
Schneiderman explains how it works.
You have the pre-filter to filter big particles. Then you have our main filter that have those three layers, the layers of the HEPA, carbon, and copper. With that you have a UVC light that can burn and destroy the bacteria in the air while getting to the product. And lastly, the sterilizer that generate the positive and negative ions in the room.
The filter system is controlled by an app whose air quality assistant is named Heidi.
You're getting the recommendation of Heidi. As we personalize the product for you, you control all the devices from one app. You have your locations, and inside of each and every product, you can see the air quality outside, the air quality inside, a summary of it, exactly what is the situation. So you can set if you have any problems of allergies or asthma, you can see your own recommendation. And lastly, you're going to get also the weather forecast.
They're also working on a portable device that can provide a 30-foot protective bubble around you.
The Aura Mini is a device that you can have your self-protection. There's part of the technology inside of it, and with that, we can give you a safe area, safe zone around you. You can use it while you're walking in the street or even sitting in coffee or driving the bus or the subway.
Schneiderman says that interest in Aura Air is growing worldwide since the outbreak of the coronavirus.
Coming up, reading the Bible in the land of the Bible, a special way to bring God's Word to life. When people come to Israel, many say the Bible comes alive in a special way. It's why we have this new segment called Reading the Bible in the Land of the Bible. Before sunrise recently, we went to a spot outside of Jerusalem, overlooking the Judean wilderness, and read from Luke chapter 1. Take a look. The Gospel according to Luke. Inasmuch as many have taken in hand to set in order a narrative of those things which have been fulfilled among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word delivered them to us. It seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write to you an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus, that you may know the certainty of those things in which you were instructed. There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias, of the division of Abijah. His wife was of the daughter of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both well advanced in years. So it was that while he was serving as priest before God in the order of his division, according to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of the people was praying outside at the hour of incense. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink. He will also be filled with the Holy Spirit, even from his mother's womb. And he will turn many of the children of Israel to the Lord their God. He will also go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." And Zechariah said to the angel, "How shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife is well advanced in years." And the angel answered and said to him, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and was sent to speak to you and bring you these glad tidings. But behold, you will be mute and not able to speak until the day these things take place, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their own time." By the way, we read those scriptures by the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, perhaps on the same road from the story on the Good Samaritan. Well, I hope you enjoyed reading the Bible in the land of the Bible. But wherever you are, the Bible is alive. So we hope this encourages you to read, study, and meditate on God's Word. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline. On Jerusalem Dateline.